Hey guys, Zomfox here, and today we have some breaking news that came out a few hours ago, and that is that sources have said that former USFL MVP quarterback Alex McGough is going to re-sign with the Birmingham Stallions ahead of the 2025 UFL season. So without further ado, we have the tweet from James Larson who said that Alex McGough is set to re-sign with the Stallions per multiple sources. This is a guy that, if you didn't watch the USFL in 2023, oh man, this guy automatically takes the number one spot over Luis Perez for the best quarterback in the league. Now, there is the caveat that we haven't seen him play quarterback in a while, especially in live, legit action, not preseason games, because he has been with the Packers in the NFL over the past 2 seasons. But the last time we saw him play, he was the best quarterback at all of spring football by a pretty wide margin. And before I get into exactly his career and why it's such a big deal, just 2 quick little mentions. Number 1, I put out a community post for community members. Go check that out. It's about thumbnails for the future. And then number 2, I just put out a community post as well asking anyone what are your biggest concerns for the 2025 UFL season. After this video, go check those out. Now, 2022 Alex McGough, he was supposed to be the starting quarterback for the Birmingham Stallions. What ended up happening is but he got hurt like that. Very first game of the season against New Jersey Generals, one of the best spring football games I've ever seen. He got hurt insanely early, and that opened the door for J'Mar Smith. J'Mar Smith came in and never looked back. He played at an MVP level the first half of the season, did kind of taper off in the second half, but still was overall one of the better quarterbacks in the league and led the team to the championship game. Now, in that game, in the second half, he would go down with injury himself, which opened the door for Alex McGough to come in and be the hero of the game. He did throw an interception, but he also did throw a touchdown that ended up being aside from the pick six that Scooby had, the biggest play of that game for them, as the Stallions did go on to win that game. Now, of course, the other caveat is it wasn't against Case Cookus. Case Cookus got hurt, and so it was essentially Alex McGough versus KJ Costello, and Costello's the one who threw that back-breaking pick six. But McGough did come in and play solid enough. 7 of 10 for 77 yards, 1 TD to 1 interception. Solid game, just not as good and efficient as J'Mar was playing, though J'Mar was a bit more inaccurate. He just didn't throw an interception. But overall, that was 2022. So at that point, he was just a quarterback in the league. Nobody really had a bunch of, thoughts about him. He was the backup after J'Mar came in and just played really well. So he was the backup for 2023. That is until the exact same thing happened to the Stallions. Very early in week 1, their starting quarterback went down with an injury. This time it was a legit season-ending injury to J'Mar Smith. He basically hurt his finger and he was done for the year. And then McGough went on to have what most people would probably agree is the greatest spring football season in the modern era. Yes, dating back to 2019's AF. In this season, in the regular season, he would finish as the USFL MVP, as well as obviously being the all-UFL quarterback. But more importantly is where he finished in the stats. Rushing-wise, he finished 6th in total rushing yards, 3rd in rushing touchdowns, 2nd in yards per rush, all the way down at tied for 15th in fumbles, and he was kind of higher at tied 6th in fumbles lost since he lost both of them, but he only had 2 fumbles, had 5 rushing touchdowns, 400 yards. Then you go into his passing stats. My God. 3rd in passing yards, 1st in touchdowns, 1st in completion percentage, 1st in passer rating, 1st in yards per pass, 6th in interceptions, tied 6th in sacks, 7th in sack yards. So he was not even near the real top of those bad stats like interceptions and sacks, yet was number 1 in pretty much every other big stat. MBT ended up having more passing yards because he threw the ball 100 times more than McGough did, and McGough was just barely behind second, but he didn't throw the ball as much as a lot of these other guys did, and he was still a very efficient passer. These passing stats are just insane for him to have done while being that great a rusher. Very much in a way, this is like a slightly worse Martinez rushing season this past year, mixed with Perez's passing game. Think about that in a sense. That's how good McGough was in the regular season in 2023. It was just this stupid, insane year where you just couldn't believe what he was doing. It was just game after game he's putting up these insane stat lines. Ending the regular season with a near 110 passer rating is insane. The fact is he was just on another planet that year. Well, he was in the playoffs. The 2023 McGough postseason is, to date, the best play we've seen a spring football quarterback in this modern era since 2019 ever play. No quarterback in the AF or XFL, either XFL, the USFL, UFL was this dominant in a postseason or just at any point. Back-to-back games, 8 touchdowns thrown, 1 fumble lost, 1 rushing touchdown, 0 interceptions. Insane. 9-1 on total touchdowns to turnovers. A 140.8 pass rating. Look, a few months before this, for context, before this postseason performance, Luis Perez was, of course, traded to the Renegades, one of the most famous spring football trades of all time. Went on to lead him to a championship game with an incredible postseason run. Now, you may be wondering, why did nobody really talk about that? He had like a 6-0 TD to interception ratio, 130 pass rating. It's because this was better. Perez had what we thought was the greatest postseason play you could see a spring football quarterback do, and then McGough just outdid him fully. Because he also led the entire postseason in rushing yards. His 148 rushing yards, his 1 rushing touchdown, his 8.7 yards per rush, all were first in the league in the playoffs. Now, of course, the touchdown was a caveat. Only 1 touchdown ended up being enough to be the lead. But he was first in yards and first in yards per rush. Again, he was tied first in fumbles lost because 1 fumble lost, blah, blah, blah. Not really a huge deal. Sack-wise, he was one of only 2 quarterbacks to get sacked. He didn't throw an interception. Only 2 other quarterbacks did throw an interception, but he didn't. Then overall passing stats, again, first in yards, first in TDs, first in percentage, first in pass rating, and first in yards per pass. That's insane. Look, we talked about it before, like this previous season. A big issue we had with A.J. McCarron for the first half of the season was that his yards per pass was very low compared to a lot of other quarterbacks. This wasn't the case with McGough, okay? McGough was slinging that ball and was doing everything. He was running for huge gains. He was throwing for huge gains. This was a guy who was insanely accurate, but wasn't afraid of deep shots or trusting his receivers. It's what led to this insane playoff run, especially when you consider who he played against. The 2023 Breakers team, talent-wise and overall how good they were, you could very well make an argument they're the best ultra-modern team to not win a championship. I know some people would argue the 2023 Defenders or the 2024 Panthers, but a lot of people would also say that 2023 Breakers team was the best because the 2022 Breakers team was really good and this was better than them, but McGough was so dominant it didn't matter and they smoked him. Then the 2023 Pittsburgh Maulers had this great defense full of a lot of great players, and even though it wasn't a true smoking, I was at that game, it wasn't really a huge blowout. For all intents and purposes, the Stallions still kind of smoked them. Now, he didn't win championship game MVP in it, but, it wasn't like it was undeserved. Deion Kane just had a really great game that day. And considering that Martinez won a championship game MVP despite being like the 3rd best player on his team that day, not a huge deal. The point is this postseason was insane. This is the last time we saw Alex McGough with the Birmingham Stallions. So when you're wondering if you were just an XFL fan or somebody who didn't watch the 2023 USFL, why so many people making a huge deal about this, is because the last we saw of him playing quarterback, he was dominating great defenses. So to think what he could do with this Stallions team is what's making a lot of people very fearful, as well as this factor. This is both the reason why a lot of people think he's going to be even better and some say worse. He was a wide receiver in the practice squad for the Packers over this past offseason. Now, his first offseason, he was really the quarterback, and then he became a transition into a wide receiver. So over the past season, he's been getting reps as a wide receiver. So now there is a legit threat with the Stallions who already have Matt Corral, who many people would already say is a top 5 QB in the league, arguably like the 3rd best. You now have a guy who's considered better than him, but somebody who can catch the ball. It is very possible we see multiple double forward passes, Corral and McGough lining up, similar to how we've seen Jaden Daniels and Marcus Mariota for the Commanders in the NFL do this, past few weeks. We could see that happen a decent amount and see games where McGough's finishing with like 7 rushing attempts, 23 passing attempts, and like 4 receptions. That wouldn't be super far-fetched to see. The fact that he has another layer to his game is insane. Now, he did deal with a couple injuries with the Packers, so there is some concern there about his full health, which again is a slight caveat to why some people wouldn't jump the gun and say he's the best quarterback in the league. But overall, this is an unbelievable signing. In terms of the UFL, so not the USFL and XFL, this is the biggest signing the UFL has had to date. This is, because this is one that people were joking about. It would be really cool to see McGough back, but I don't think he's going to come back. And he's back. This is a huge re-sign. Now again, it is possible that the injuries he had taken or the fact that he hasn't played quarterback in a while end up, coming back to screw him over heading into the season. That's entirely possible. Right? You never know 100% how a guy's going to play after not being in the league. We saw with Chris Odom, he basically didn't miss a beat. He wasn't the insane dominant 2022 self he was, but that 2022 self is what I consider the greatest spring football season of all time. A lot of people consider McGough's this past year, or McGough's 2023. I think Odom's 2022 is the best. I think he was better than Turpin. Hot take, I know. McGough is going to be insane if he is back to what he was. So this is another one of those players where, just like Abram Smith, if Abram Smith is back to what he was the last time he played, there's some huge things that could happen. And most importantly, Stallions legitimately might four-peat. So that'll be it. This has been ZomFox. If you enjoyed this video, make sure to subscribe and hit the bell to be notified as soon as I upload any videos. Again, we're getting closer and closer to the season, so we're going to start seeing some of those big tier list videos, coaches rankings, getting closer to power rankings and all that. Again, if you're a community member, I put out a community post for you guys about potential thumbnail change. Let me know your thoughts on that post. And for everybody else, as well as them, put out a post that's just asking what your biggest concern is for the 2025 UFL season. I'll answer those questions and give my biggest concerns next week, either like Monday or Friday. So be on the lookout for that. Again, we're getting closer and closer to 1,000 subscribers. We are doing a giveaway. So if you haven't already, make sure to subscribe. And as always, guys, have a great night.